what's the big question people have? Like, what's the thing everybody's wondering about? What's the thing I don't understand? What would I want to hear?
It's like, that's Big Darklighter's helmet. So how did you know? Because I'm a nerd.
Cassie and Jim on the beach, and people are like, no. I can literally hear people that go, no.
Because Darth Vader was the scariest thing that had ever happened to anybody, and this guy literally looks like the devil.
What are you doing, C-3PO? I'm taking one last look at my friends. These aren't your friends.
And I got a later call that said, yeah, you probably want to use Wedge Antilles.
That spirit of doing everything they can to tell the story they want to tell, I think really comes through on Star Wars.
You don't do that. There is no try.
I joke that the best thing about writing Princess Leia is everybody knows who she is, and the worst thing about writing Princess Leia is everyone knows who she is.
It doesn't look like they're even hungry when they get out. They're not just like, did you bring a Snickers or something?
I'm honored to be here. I'm also impressed that you got Zach Galifianakis as a guest tonight.
That's so funny.
I've always been kind of a closet Star Wars fan up until, maybe 15, 20 years ago.
I'm just sort of a fan hoping to bring other fans along. That's all I'm doing.
The galaxy isn't growing to push people out. It's growing to let more people come in and find their love so that it's able to continue and create this connective tissue that grows forever.
Where now I feel like I can't do that because somebody's going to turn it into a blog post and then it's going to become a whole thing.
I have had the best time ever on Around the Galaxy.
Be coming back to a show that I dearly love and admire, so thanks for having me.
Well, welcome to Podcast of the Wills. It is Thursday night, and it's time to record another episode. It's time to record another guest, an exciting guest I'm excited to have on the show, and I'll talk in a minute once I get him on here, kind of how I managed to pull this off and reel him in to be a part of the show. But if you are watching right now, you're one of our Patreon supporters. Thank you so much for doing that, for being a part of the ATG Cast feed. I know I saw Matthew in the chat a minute ago. I think Jeff was going to hang out. So any of you that are here, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for being here. I think you're going to enjoy this conversation. My guest tonight is Cody Marler. Cody is what I'm calling a TikTok sensation. Cody and his wife, Leslie, popped up in my feed. I don't know, other than just I like funny people and they're very funny and they're a fun couple. And they, I just have been watching their stuff for a little bit, and Saturday night, and I'll tell this, in a minute when we record on air when I get Cody on, but he was live and I threw a thing in his chat about on what level do you love Star Wars? And he's like, holy crap, I was like, okay, I've got a deal for you. Come hang out, come talk about it. So without further ado, and if I can get my video thing running so I can look like I know what I'm doing, I'm excited to welcome to the show, Cody Marler. Cody.
What's going on, guys?
Welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good, man. I'm happy to be here. This will be my first.
I'm very excited to have you.
So
we'll see. We're breaking you in right. We're dragging you in. And as I was saying before I came on air, and for anybody that's listening to the podcast, Cody and his wife Leslie are TikTok phenoms right now, rising in the ranks of TikTok fandom and what all that means. I don't fully understand it because, as it says in my TikTok bio, I'm too old to be on this app and not old enough to be anywhere else. I don't fully get how it works, but last Saturday night, you were live on TikTok hanging out and talking to people, and I was watching, and in the chat, I just thought, I'm just going to see what happens if I ask this question. And I said, on a scale of meh to I love it, where are you with Star Wars? And you immediately were like, oh, I'm like 100 times past I love it. And I was like, well, I've got an idea. Let's throw it out there. Let's see what happens. And managed to pull it together in a short order of time. So thank you for being willing to come and hang out with me. And for anybody who's listening to the audio version and didn't get to see this as a patron supporter on video, thank you for being here to have a better beard than I have, because you have quite the well coiffed beard, and now I'm just jealous. So
Well, I might be able to hook you up because on December 1st, my whole beard line comes out. I'll send you one, man. I'll send you the whole
That's
box.
awesome. I've been keeping up with that through your feed, and I knew that was in the works. I'm excited about that.
December 1st date. But yeah, I mean,
well, as we jump in, tell me a little bit about, just kind of a little bit in general about Cody, who you are, what you do, you and your wife, and what y'all do with TikTok and that kind of stuff, and then we'll jump into Star Wars after that.
Absolutely, man. Me and my wife, we've been married coming on 8 years, been together almost 10. And through that time, we've got 3 kids of our own. We also have Leslie's younger 2 siblings with us. So we got a house of 5 kids. And, it's busy. I work as an automation and control specialist full time. And I'd say about 3-4 months ago, we started to kind of look into taking TikTok a little more seriously. And what we found was people really kind of felt like they could relate to what we were making. And I think part of that was we were not trying to be something we're not. We're not trying to be the perfect couple or look how great our life is. Like, we're just trying to be real. We joke around, we poke fun at each other. We're crazy about each other in real life. But we like to mess with each other. We like to tease. I think that's normal. That's what and not necessarily like pranking or something like that. We don't do a lot of necessarily pranks. It's just kind of relatable content about our lives. And it's taken off in a way we could not have possibly imagined. We just got out right before this. We were doing our final interview before we do an actual audition for a TV show. So kind of cool. I mean, 4 months ago, there's no chance I would have thought, first off, anybody be interested in having me on a podcast or the fact that there's almost 900,000 people now between me and Leslie who want to watch, some jokes we make. So I think it's amazing. I'm just a regular guy and I love Star Wars. It was so growing up, we only had a VHS player. We didn't have TV. Cable was available and everything, but just my dad wasn't about it. So I had the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which I don't think was quite finished, but I think we had the first 1 and 2. I had Indiana Jones, I had Star Wars, and I had John Wayne. And of those choices, Star Wars was like always on. That original trilogy. I grew up on it when I was old enough and they came out with the prequels. I mean, I lost my mind. Now they get a bad rap, and I understand that. I watched it as an adult. I understand some of the flaws and the cheesiness of it. But for me, they were, it was like that prequels and the original 3. Those were the best movies, the best cinematography of any kind that I'd ever seen. Right. And I felt, that and Lord of the Rings was up there as well with me. If we weren't pretending to be, Luke and Han and those guys, we were pretending to be, Lord of the Rings characters, but those that's what I grew up on, those trilogy I watched, I'd watch one movie at least every week, over and over, and we never got old.
No, I totally relate to that. And, that's such I love that you kind of transitioned into that, because that's the first question is kind of your Star Wars origin story. And you talk about, having the VHS. Do you remember the very first time you saw Star Wars that like it stuck with you? Like, holy crap. I mean, you grew up with it like a lot of us did. Yes. Basically anybody born after 77 has always had Star Wars.
Exactly.
But that moment when it crystallizes the first time, you're like, oh, I remember this.
Well, for me, it was a little different because my parents were pretty strict about what we could watch. So we kind of like got eased in, and Star Wars wasn't immediately allowed. So you had to kind of become of age. There was like certain ages, as you kind of went through our life. It was like, you could watch some of the John Waynes when you're younger, and we had the Andrew Griffith Show, and we had Beverly Hillbillies, and then we had Looney Tunes. Like, those were the 3 you got to watch when you're younger. And then I remember when you were 7 years old, my dad would introduce Star Wars. that was the age he felt appropriate. And so I remember it was a big deal. I mean, we're sitting down, my older brothers and sisters, are like, oh, here we go, Star Wars again. We only have so many movies here, right? But me, I was like, this is the first time. And I remember thinking like, why have I not been allowed to watch this? I feel like I was missing out on something incredible. Right. And given it was, I mean, my dad, his generation, has been watching Star Wars for, like you said, since anybody born after 1977. My dad was, I think, 11 when it came out, and he watched all of them. And, that has been a staple in our family for as long as I can remember. My dad is not a sci-fi guy. He thinks it's ridiculous, but Star Wars, he bought every single one. We had the extended cuts. I mean, he was a fan. And, I remember getting to sit down and watch that entire first one. And then we only had a limited amount of TV. So I was ready to, let's watch one. Is there the second one happens, right? I mean, you're like desperate on the hook. And my dad's like, you get to watch it next Saturday. So for those it's like a 3-week period. My life was like consumed with just waiting on getting to see the next one, what happens, so very cool. I thought that was a cool way of doing it. And then once you get to watch them, when my brother turned 7, I was 9, and we were the young ones. So it just stayed on, once we were allowed to watch it, that was all we watched. So it was awesome. I love it.
That's fantastic. And so it grabbed you early. It held on to you. And I have a theory here. How old were you when the prequels came out?
They came out in 2001, right? The first one?
First one was 99.
99. So I did not get to watch it in theaters. I knew the first one. I didn't. Did one come out in 2001? I believe one came out in 2001.
I think it was 99, 02, and
02. Whatever one. I remember by the time, so I watched those 3, and my dad told me there's another one about before that had already come out. So I remember watching the first one at home, and then the second one I got to go into the theaters, and that was I think probably the first time I'd ever gone to the movies. That wasn't just like, hey, mom, dad are taking you to the movies. Like, I wanted to go. I was waiting for the movie to come out. It was definitely the first movie that I ever saw that I knew the date it was coming out. Back then you had to call the movie theater and get showtimes. You know what I mean? And I was calling, to find out, Dad, can we go today? The showtimes I've written them all down. You know what I mean? And finally, I don't remember what the day was exactly though. I was like 8 years old, but I remember like writing the showtimes down every day for I think it was probably about a week before we finally got to go. And I go in there and I watch what, in my mind at the time was the greatest thing that ever graced the screen. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I loved it. And then as the third one came out, I was just kind of growing up in, I was coming on my teen years, and that one kind of got a little more dark. I mean, it's the darker of the 3 prequels. And, I thought, oh man. And to this day, I will say, I don't think there's been a better lightsaber fight. The ending lightsaber fight with Obi-Wan and Anakin is an incredible feat, not just for cinema, but like what they had to do to train for that. And,
correct.
And, that is not a simple thing to do. I mean, to make it look as good, you've seen plenty of sword fights in movies.
Yeah.
That one looked like they were fighting to kill each other. It did not look like it was rehearsed or scripted.
Right.
It's an incredible scene, and I remember that sticking into my head immediately. That was the coolest fight scene I've ever seen. In my mind, I was like, that was it. And it has that part of the movie, if nothing else, held up to anything else we've seen, other than maybe the second Obi-Wan and Anakin fight. I did love that one too. So
yeah, that turned out to be pretty awesome. And you're exactly right about the power of that, the speed of how they did that. And I loved, and I'm such a sucker for behind the scenes stuff. But of course, as those movies came out, as the DVDs came out, like we got to see them practicing, and we got to see how fast they were literally learning those moves and choreographing, being on top of that table, and how fast they swung those.
Ian McGregor was training himself in like 3 or 4 different sword skills and different styles to develop Obi-Wan's You know, people didn't do that as much at that time. Like a lot of what was going on with Star Wars was groundbreaking. Going in that aggressive. And at that time it's crazy because if you look at the early 2000s, there was like a shift in movies, and I believe that Star Wars and Lord of the Rings were both in those early 2000s. They showed people like, look, if you get people who sell out to these roles, and you get people who take it more seriously than you're just, oh, we're going to go and make a movie and it'll sell. They wanted to make something incredible, and I think Ian McGregor and Hayden Christensen, they like as much grief as Hayden can get. He sold out to that role to the point where it almost hurt his career because he went all in, and I love to see it. I think that is an amazing story for both of them to see that kind of commitment before it was as mainstream as it is now.
Absolutely. And I think a really neat bookend to exactly what you're talking about is what we heard in all the press stuff leading up to the Obi-Wan Kenobi show that we got just a few months back. But that was part of the deal. Like, Ewan McGregor was very vocal in saying, for a long time, he wasn't super interested in coming back because, the prequels got hammered a little bit by, Star Wars fans like me who are a little too into things sometimes. And, there was a period, but over time, as even older Star Wars fans like me who grew to appreciate, because I was in college when Phantom Menace came out, and I was so excited for it to come. I saw it and I went, I don't know, like I don't know how I feel about this. And then as the other ones came out for a while, I was that jerk that was like, that's not my Star Wars. I'm the OT, and I'm whatever. But I've grown to appreciate them over the years for a lot of different reasons, and I love those movies. I love the sequel trilogy movie. Like, I love all Star Wars. But in that moment, I can see where he was coming from. And so part of what he said, and I was at Star Wars Celebration back in May in California, and he said from the stage, he said, the reason we're doing this show is because of the outpouring of love from the fans in recent years. And the fact that so many fans wanted to see not only him as Obi-Wan continue that role and get a chance to do it again, but the call and the love for Hayden too, and the ability to want Hayden to be involved. Like, the fan passion and the love for what they did back then encouraged them enough to go, we want to do some more, and reignited that passion in both of those actors.
And I think, and this is no shot at you or anyone else who had the same feelings you did, I think it was because, and I think George Lucas is a genius and he knows what he's doing. He knew that if you were already, say, old enough to really look at it and be a major critic, you're already a Star Wars fan, right? If you're so critical, you're already a Star Wars fan. But he was able to do with a generation like my generation. We finally are growing up and being able to show our support for that stuff. But we grew up on that one. And I know that looking back, like, yes, you compare the two, and I'm not going to sit here and try and compare them. The original trilogy is much better than prequels. But the prequels have a special place in my heart because,
Absolutely.
I mean, those were my Star Wars as much as any of the others. Like, they came out when I was a kid. I was watching them come out live. And as I've grown up, I've seen you have like a generation where it's like, no, my Star Wars was this. But now that, my generation is getting a little older, people my age are saying, well, hey, our Star Wars was that. Yeah, we can look at it and say that it had some flaws, but we still fell in love with the universe, the galaxy, the storytelling, because it was, and Obi-Wan Kenobi, what he was able to do with that character is incredible. He did that character as good as anybody's ever done any character, I think he was able to really go above and beyond your standard character. Like, you have certain people that you feel like they are that person, and you like Daniel Radcliffe is Harry Potter, right? He did such a good job as Harry Potter that no matter what he does after that, you kind of have that, that's Harry Potter, and to this day, I've seen interviews of Ian McGregor, and he'll tell you, like, on the street right now, people, one of my favorite, interviews of his is like, he got cut off, right, in traffic. and he's he's yelling at the guy, and he pulls up next to him and he starts going in on him, and he just looked at him and he says, I'm not gonna, I don't know what the ratings
No, you're
are,
fine. You're good.
He says, he's like, that's fucking Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Exactly. I've heard him tell that. It's phenomenal.
I love it. But yeah, he did that so well that he is Obi-Wan Kenobi. And that's why I think it worked in the TV show, because there is a little bit of an age, it's like with the age, the looks, some of the stuff's like, well, how does he age so far? It's like, it doesn't matter, because he is Obi-Wan. You couldn't recast him.
That's right.
He's Obi-Wan. And I loved it. I didn't feel like it didn't fit. It just, to me, it was so well done as a character. Out of all the other characters in Star Wars, you got Luke, Luke was Luke. I mean, he didn't do, other than the voice of Joker, he didn't do much other than that. Right. Leia, she had some stuff, but I mean, the characters were so unbelievably done. And that's what makes, Harrison Ford crazy to me, is his ability to be Indiana Jones, to be Jack Ryan, to be Han Solo. It's incredible to see his talent. That really shows you what his ability as an actor to create that, and break free of that. But it's still, an incredible thing to watch somebody like Ian McGregor turn a character that you didn't have that much to work with, in the original movies. Like, how do you play on his demeanor? What do you do? And he took it, made it his own, and I think he killed it.
Yeah, I agree with you completely, and I think it adds a level of depth to the talent he has to take not only a character that existed already in the original trilogy, played by Alec Guinness, who was a legend himself, but there wasn't a ton there, like you said. Like, most of the Alec Guinness Obi-Wan we get is in New Hope. We get a little bit, with the Force, projections in Empire and in Return of the Jedi, but like, what Ewan McGregor did, not only in the prequels, but with the show, is he was able to add so many layers and depth and flesh out who exactly Obi-Wan Kenobi was. And it just, it gives it so much gravitas. It gives it so much weight to be able to look at it and go, this character existed, but it really made it to a point where I'm like, oh, I kind of forgot about Alec Guinness most of the time. Like, Obi-Wan Kenobi is Ewan McGregor.
And it's not to take away from his performance. I mean, he was the only real talent in the original.
Right.
I mean, you had,
and he famously thought it was all nonsense. He was like, "This is dumb." Like, he was like, "Why am I here other than I'm getting paid?"
His contract, the value of his contract, because he took more money in what the earnings. I mean, that's he's still one of the wealthiest people to have ever acted in, or his value of what he earned from the movies is still more than, like, I think anybody's still. So incredible, smart guy, incredible cast. And then as you move into the newer ones,
right?
I'm the type that's like, oh, the original 6 are my Star Wars, right? But I have a 16-year-old and a 12-year-old and my boys. Dude, they love Rey. They love Finn. I know that they're like, to me, it's like, oh, I didn't, but I think it did it again, because they're still a good story. They're still Star Wars. It's still incredible. I mean, visually, they were incredible. You can't complain about anything visually almost in that. I mean, they did a great job. Like, the best looking Star Wars I've seen. And, but my younger kids are like, I don't know what you're talking about, Dad. I love that one. I love, and I'm going to sit here and say, oh, I wasn't the biggest fan of The Last Jedi or Force Awakens necessarily. But my kids love it. It didn't bother them one bit. They don't know all the details. They haven't watched 700 hours of behind the scenes of Star Wars like I have. And now I'm this nerd who gets to say, this couldn't have. It's still a great series. It hasn't fallen apart, and I think as long as that continues, we'll still get good content, and we'll still be able to, we wouldn't be talking about it as much as we are right now in society if we weren't getting more Star Wars, if Disney didn't buy it. As negative as some people can say, they ruined it, or, it's going downhill. we're getting Star Wars. Okay, that's all I wanted since the prequels ended. I just wanted more Star Wars. You know,
I just wanted more Star Wars, and we're getting pound for pound right now more Star Wars than we've ever gotten, than has ever existed. Like, it really is a bounty of riches when you look at Mandalorian, which, like a lot of people, when Mandalorian was announced and coming out, I was that guy that was like, I don't know if I need that. And I watched that first episode and I was like, I need all of this. Like,
I need Jon Favreau to have as many shows as he wants.
Correct.
You know,
and then we get, Book of Boba Fett, we get Kenobi. Andor right now is absolutely unbelievable. And we know we have on deck another season of Mando, another season of Bad Batch, the Ahsoka show. Like, there's so many things that are still coming. And that doesn't even address all the other animation, Clone Wars and Rebels and Resistance. And it's unbelievable. If you had told me as a kid after Return of the Jedi came out and all I had were the old extended universe novels that I read, you have no idea what you're going to get as an adult in Star Wars. I've been like, I'm pretty sure it's over. Like, we had a good run and we're done.
Yep. But as you progress, and like, here's my thing. I've seen a drop off in quality of Marvel when they started to mass produce, kind of like they're doing, and it really has nothing to do with me other than just the storytelling is not quite what it was. Some of some of the characters, they don't develop them like they used to. It's not, some people say, oh, politics. I don't care about that. I don't care, what anybody is, or if there's a girl super. It doesn't bother me at all. I just want a good story, a developed character, and Star Wars hasn't lost that yet. Even with as much as they're producing, I don't feel like there's been just this one that was just horrible. I would say Boba is probably my least favorite, but it's still good.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. I'm the same way.
I don't feel like, oh man, I regret watching it. I don't even watch some of the Marvel anymore because the storytelling is just going down. And
I think there's
politics.
I think you bring up an interesting point, and I want to dig into this for a minute because I've had this thought, and I actually had this conversation with a friend of mine on the phone 2 hours ago, and I'm developing this theory on the fly a little bit, so stick with me. I think I see kind of what you're saying, like Marvel movies are continuing to kind of maintain their standard. Like, the movies are a different level than their TV. I mean, we went and saw Black Panther 2 last weekend, and my God, that's an unbelievable movie. Like, it's so powerful. And of course, knowing the story of Chadwick Boseman adds so many layers, to it. But like the Marvel, and I'll be honest, there are a couple of misses. The Eternals didn't do it for me.
No, I don't think it did it for anybody.
Shang-Chi is fun, but I was like, okay, cool, that was fun, and I moved on. But like, this other, even
the newest Thor felt like it was good and entertaining, but it just didn't have the depth that we're used to with Marvel, where it, and given they're rebuilding, so it's easy to talk about that right after we just watched Infinity War, the culmination of 20 movies,
20 years or 20 movies, 10 years, all that.
Yeah, it's like you look at that and it's like, oh, well, of course we got a little bit of maybe too high a standard, but their TV shows, and I think the only one that really has done it for me is Loki. I think Loki was pretty good, but if you look at it, you're right. It's like there's a difference. There's the movies, and they're even the ones that aren't good, or they're not maybe as good as some of the the original great ones. But we had Iron Man 2, okay, and we had Thor to the Dark World, okay. So there were some misses even in the beginning, but their TV shows are on a different level. You know what I mean? Movies up here, TVs are down here on most of the cases.
That's right. And I think where I'm going with this theory that I haven't developed very well is there's a significant drop off between the Marvel movies and the Marvel TV shows. But we also went through a thing starting also in the late 90s into the 2000s where TV, with things like The Sopranos and Deadwood and Justified and The West Wing and Breaking Bad, TV went to a different level. And we have things now like Game of Thrones, and we have prestige TV that meets a level of cinema on these platforms, especially the cable network platforms like HBO and things like that. And so TV got elevated at some point. And so now there's almost a thing like you have cable TV and you have network TV shows. Like, I can't tell you the last time I watched a network TV show. Like, it's cheesy, it doesn't work.
And that's what I was, you look at it, there's a different level. It used to be, if you saw a mainstream actor in a TV show, their career was over. or getting done. Now it's like, are you kidding me? The biggest names in all of TV and cinema history are, I mean, you look at like Yellowstone, there is, Kevin Costner is Kevin Costner. I mean, he is A-list, top tier.
We're talking about Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves here.
Yeah, and then you've got Sylvester Stallone coming out with a, kind of like almost a spinoff of, not really a spinoff, but in the same vein. You've got Jeremy Renner in Mayor of Kingstown.
Harrison Ford's going to be in the freaking Yellowstone prequel that's coming out. Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren in a Yellowstone TV show. Like,
it's unbelievable. You look at that and you say, okay, there shouldn't be a reason
right
now to have the gap. Like, they're willing to spend, what was it, $1 billion on the Lord of the Rings TV show?
Rings of Power, yeah.
Rings of Power, right? $1 billion, I think, is what they spent, or total what they're spending. I think $100 million on the first season. That you have the budget, you can make as good quality film as you would like.
Yeah, and there was a thing that came out earlier this week that the Disney Plus subscription price was going up to $10.99, and they've got 221 million subscribers, which puts them ahead of Netflix. And somebody did the math on that. They're like, yeah, they're over $2 billion in subscribers a year. I think buying Star Wars for $4 billion has worked out for Disney. Even
it was the biggest steal. I mean,
oh my
fact that you're making $1 billion on your Marvel movies already.
Yeah.
You knew Star Wars was on that level, right? There was no question. I'm like, you're going to get your money back so fast. I don't know how they agreed on $4. I mean, I guess I do. I mean, $4 billion is a ridiculous number, so, but I think
it was the one George Lucas said yes to. So,
yeah, if I had $4 billion, I would have done it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. You'd never hear from me again. That's it.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, kind of circling around on this TV and movies thing, talking about Star Wars. And this was the conversation I had with a buddy of mine just a little bit ago. Based on the quality of Star Wars content that we have gotten over the last 3 years that have all been TV shows since Rise of Skywalker came out, this is the last movie we got. Would you be satisfied if the Star Wars content remained at the level it is now, but there was never another cinematic movie? Or do you need a Star Wars movie?
No, because in this, I'm going to be very, very blunt here, and people might not like it. They are taking the characters down a notch, which they do in almost every TV show. The bad guys are not as formidable, right? You don't feel like, I mean, in the TV shows, like, yeah, you have bad guys, but like, the final scene in Boba Fett, which is really the final episode of Boba Fett, they have to put handcuffs on them so they don't just obliterate, because those two guys, you got 12 bad guys running at them. I mean, they're standing still in the center shooting. You have to almost take them down a notch so that it doesn't, because I mean, they are incredibly deadly men. They would have a lot more up their sleeves, and they wouldn't have got pinned down so easily. But you had to do it to make some TV show style drama, right? And I don't want to be too harsh on them because I liked it, but it's like I think the Mandalorian did it a little bit better. The bad guy, because the bad guy wins. The only reason they don't lose is Luke. I think that worked perfect. But I think that the only reason that worked was because the movies had already set Luke up, and everybody was waiting for Luke and everything. So you didn't have to like build up a character like Luke. Like, he's there. Sure. If you're watching that show, you know who Luke is. You're excited to see him on screen. It was the perfect, final battle.
Yeah.
I mean, it was perfect, right? I loved that.
Yeah.
But in general, and you see it in the Marvel movie or Marvel TV shows, you'll see it in the Star Wars TV shows. The villains don't get enough. I guess you can say build, in my opinion. And I think there's in a TV show, and name is Sidious, right?
Sure.
There's no name of Vader. Right now, you get Vader in, but like I said, without the movies, it's not the same, right? So you're able to still play on some of what that cinema gave you, but I think it'll drag out. And then what are you left with without cinema, right? And so that's kind of where I see it is without the cinema, the greatest moments in the TV shows aren't as good, right?
Okay. Yeah.
If it's not Luke coming in and it's just a Jedi, does it feel the same? I don't think so. I mean, I've seen Luke in action finally in what he is, his peak form, which is you can't mess with him, right?
Yeah.
Those guys didn't. He's not the young Luke who's worried or who can't handle himself that you see kind of grow into the Jedi that he is, and you get that little bit of what Luke really can be toward the end of the original trilogy, and then that was it, right? You've been waiting for the moment where you get Luke, which is, he's the most powerful Jedi in canon, and there's no doubt about it. That the time between his fall and Return of the Jedi, he is incredibly powerful. So we get a snippet of that. Without it, if it's just a Jedi, it's okay. And I think that even maybe you bring in Ahsoka, right, who could be great, but you had a really long cartoon to kind of develop her character.
Right.
It's still not the same, though. I'm not freaking out like I am for Luke. I'm not freaking out about, the final fight scene with Vader and Obi-Wan and the emotions that we are feeling and the simplicity of, the joke that, he has him down low and he takes the ground or the rocks around him and he throws him down. And my favorite meme was what did you do wrong, Vader? And he's like, I had the high ground. And what did you do with the high ground? I gave it to Obi-Wan.
Threw it at him,
right?
Exactly.
And it's like, but all those moments. And when Obi-Wan finally breaks free and he is an incredibly powerful Jedi. And you finally see that next step, that awakening we've been waiting for. Those moments don't feel as powerful without the cinema. So I see it as if you keep drawing it out, and the farther you get from the cinema, the less there you'll have those unbelievable moments that you get in TV. You know what I mean? That I don't think you're going to have. I think that's part of Marvel's problem is those original characters are all retiring. They're kind of done. You have a few, but a lot of the people you're seeing in the TV shows in Marvel, there's the new people, right? You're not as connected to them. And you have to get those movies to build that connection. I don't know why. You would think that they would be able to build a little bit more connection, and they are with The Mandalorian. I will say, for a character that is non-existent, really, until the TV shows, they've done an incredible job of building him. But even him, it's like the bad guys, I feel like the stakes are sometimes lower. It doesn't feel like you're saving the universe like Luke did. It doesn't feel like you're watching the universe crumble like the prequels did, right? And so I don't feel like there's as much. The stakes are just lower in the TV shows, and maybe they can change that.
Absolutely.
But I still want those high stakes, the incredible bad guys. I want the next Vader. I know that might be impossible because he's probably the best villain of all time, right? Him and Sidious are incredible villains on paper, in cinema, just good quality, well thought out, well acted villains. And I think that builds a TV show or a movie more than anything. Is if you don't have a really great villain, then your hero can only ever be so good,
right?
And
I wonder, and I wonder if there's a chance here. And you said, Mandalorian does a little bit better than some of the other things. I think something that's interesting, and of course we saw a lot of this in Marvel and kind of the cinematic universe, the Marvel universe or whatever. We've gotten with Mando and Book of Boba Fett so far, we've kind of gotten this term, the Mandoverse, and how those things overlap. The Ahsoka show is going to also be in that same time frame and fall in that same timeline. So you do have the ability, and I think this is maybe what they're running at. If it were to spill into a movie, I don't know. But you've got, we get the tease of Grand Admiral Thrawn in the Ahsoka Mando episode. We get, we've gotten casting and the preview stuff so far that has shown up for Ahsoka is that they've cast Sabine. We've got rumors that Ezra is cast. Like we're heading towards kind of a live action Rebels thing, Thrawn has the opportunity to be the Star Wars Thanos in a lot of ways, and maybe give us, the third place spot in the best Star Wars villain. The potential is there. Now they have some work to do to get there, because Thrawn in the novels holds a special place. Thrawn in Rebels holds a special place. Like, they did some really cool stuff with that character. So it'll be interesting to see how they develop it. And I don't think we're done with movies. Personally, I think we will get more.
Well,
I think it creates an interesting direction with where they go.
I think if you laid the groundwork with 3 or 4 great TV shows, and then build a 2 or 3 movie universe, like cinematic performance right there, I still think those 3 movies, if you build the groundwork and because I don't care if the groundwork is done on TV shows or on movies. And here's the thing: I hope they change it. I hope that they're able to give me what you feel with a movie, which I'm telling you, I've not seen any TV show ever. And I watch a lot of TV. I watch a lot of movies. I have not ever gotten the same high, the same just shock and awe in a TV show ever, because it seems like every time they build up to a big one, it's like, man, you can't quite get it done in an hour. And like Game of Thrones, you build up the greatest story of all time, and then it just falls apart. Right. It's not horrible. Yeah. But it doesn't end.
But it's not great. Yeah, it loses steam, and that's a hard thing to maintain.
Exactly, and it's also because how do you stop it in the middle of a great scene, a great episode, and make it, because the truth be told, the fight between the White Walkers and the Northmen should have been 4 episodes.
Right.
But it doesn't really work when you have to you need 3.5 hours. You need
That's right. I said my biggest critique of that final season was not necessarily how they ended all the characters, is that they did it in such a short period of time. Yeah, give me 10 episodes, not 6, to get there, which was my same feeling about The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
The Rise of Skywalker.
You rushed it.
If you had made The Rise of Skywalker 2 movies like they did with the Harry Potter finale, give those stories time to breathe and develop. They would have sat differently with me, but everything was on fast forward. We had to get to here, to here, to here, Rey, this, that, the Carrie Fisher part of it. Like, it was so fast.
They tried to tie up 1,000 bows at the same time as building a new. And here's my thing. I think you're so hesitant to allow Luke to take center, because you knew you had to move away from him.
Right.
But you could have done that in the same way they did with Obi-Wan Kenobi. Right. I don't think they needed as much build up. Like, I think you could have immediately had Luke involved in the original one. Get past that right in the beginning. Get past our legends and our the people we want to see. Let them go quick in the beginning, and then move to a new story.
Yeah.
But because I think they drug out too, trying to, I don't know if they're trying to keep views. I don't know. They drug out the story of Luke. They drug out the story of Leia. And Han, I think, was the best one. I think you would have done that almost to all of them, where it's like Han dies, the death that he always wanted. I mean, Han wanted, or
he was asking for it in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, he was wanting to die a long time ago. And I think it's brilliant to let those characters die off in an amazing way, and move on with the story, and then let people build. And it doesn't have to be 3. I think they were so stuck on the 3 prequels, then the 3 originals, and then 3. I'm like, if you would have done 7 movies but done it right, you're gonna sell $1 billion a movie if you're doing it right.
Right.
There's not you couldn't force feed me enough Star Wars. And I think that's most Star Wars fans are like.
I was less hung up on the fact that it was 3 perfect trilogies than I would have been if it was a 3rd quadrilogy with a little more time to let the story breathe.
Absolutely.
And I mean, give me an excuse to spend $25 more and go to the movies again. I mean, come on now.
Merch. I mean, it's I have not, being in, so it's a lot is different for me right now in my life. Things are very different. And I'm starting to see some of the unbelievable value of just getting people to see whatever it is you want them to see. I know that seems very vague, but just whether it's a movie, an ad, a podcast, there is so much value in putting whatever it is you have in front of as many people as you can. You know, whether it be merch or ads, or I mean, it's like you couldn't have spent enough money, because you could sell as much as you need to pay for it. Like, there would not be a lack of support financially, I think, in the Star Wars universe, right? I mean, no chance that there is a oh, well, you know, I don't know about this because, you know, we just haven't been making money on. No, every time they did it, I'm sure they made a couple $1 billion, and and they weren't the best.
That's right. And I talk all the time, and we talk about, my network partner Pete and I, we talk about, you know, for as much, you know, I'm a content creator in a different way than you are. I'm a Star Wars content creator. Like, I'm pretty single focused. You know, I have a podcast. I've had this podcast since 2017. But for as we joke all the time, we're the sweaty nerds, but we're the outlier when you really think about it. Like, nerds like me, and even nerds like you to a degree, we're the outlier. The majority of Star Wars fans are the people like my dad or my brother-in-law who are like, oh yeah, I saw that movie, that was fun, and like, I think I had a Star Wars t-shirt one time. Like, the wide part of the bell curve are the general everyday fans who see a movie, like it, and then don't think about it again until somebody either brings it up, or you know, somebody like me, who the majority of t-shirts I own are Star Wars t-shirts, and so when I wear one, somebody's like, oh, you like Star Wars? I'm like, yeah, and then I'm like waiting to just like pounce on them and, you know, drown them in knowledge. But that's the same thing, whether it's content creation, whether it's marketing, like we're talking about with Disney Plus and with these things, and seeing these stories show up. And Disney is so good. And the 10-year acquisition of Star Wars by Disney was just a couple weeks ago. They know what they're doing.
Was it really 10 years?
Yeah, it's been 10 years. But they know what they're doing, and you're exactly right. And as a content creator yourself, and what you and your wife are doing, getting in front of people, doing things that people notice, whether it's having merch, whether it's having a beard and skincare line, whether it's creating content and thinking about things in the way of, where are the eyeballs, where are the, you know, it applies more to our generations, both yours and mine, than it ever has to anybody else. And that's another thing that creates a really interesting environment for not only those of us that create content, but for all of us that consume it. What do I see that catches my attention? What do I see that I missed out on?
And I think I mean, yes, social media is a part of it, but also movies did not used to make money like they make now. Like, you know, a movie $100 million was an incredible feat.
Yeah, a big deal.
Now, that is the biggest bust of the year. You know what I mean? Like,
So, last weekend, Black Panther 2 made $300 million. Like,
in one weekend. And it probably isn't even the biggest weekend opening of any Marvel movie. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's the thing, is everything's $1 billion now with a B. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And once you start realizing that, like, if you can create something on that level, there is an amount of money you can spend that's too much. And then it makes it easy, right? Then it's just, as long as you don't, and excuse my language here, shit the bed.
Yeah, correct.
It's like, it's not that bad. It's not. You know, even when a flop still makes its money back nowadays. That's crazy. You know what I mean?
Right. Like, even people are bad at math realize the cost benefit analysis of that turns out to be not a bad idea.
Yeah, it's like, dude, if you're making good content on social media, on podcast, on TV, on anything, right now is the time to do it, because, you know, the level of success, like, we may have a bar that's really high. It's like, oh, did you make $1 billion? But a lot of these smaller companies, they're like, I don't need to make $1 billion. If I can make $20 million more than I spent, that's still amazing. It's $20 million for making a movie.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think we kind of lose some of that. And I'm like, and that's where I really struggle sometimes, is if I see a content that's not that good, I'm like, why? Why did you it's not, you could spend everything you need to spend, you know, you know, there's no reason, unless it's, you know, just trying to be greedy or something,
Right.
because there is a level of cinematic on Marvel, especially. It's like up here in the
Mhm.
movies, the CGI, the special effects. You're kind of in the middle with your Marvel TV
Yeah.
shows. I mean, there's
That's right.
sometimes you're like, what did I just watch? That's not Marvel. You know what I mean? And you're
Well,
like,
it
why wouldn't
becomes
you
an
spend the money?
it becomes an economy of scale is really what
Yeah.
it comes down to. Like, you're existing in, where do we apply the dollars? Where do we see the return coming back? I think
Yeah.
with Marvel, the TV shows help keep them going until the next movie comes out. I think with Star Wars, the TV
They're
shows
building
have been something that is developing the lore and the canon and the language while they have the opportunity to sort out and do a movie really well,
Well,
instead of
and
just cranking one
Marvel's
out.
also very different. Whereas, like, there is an unlimited supply of
Correct.
canon and
Yeah.
content that's already out there, and every character is well known. I mean, there's just, if you want to know about a character, there's so much built around each character. So
Mhm.
it's, whereas Star Wars, yeah, you might have had some graphic novels, some even some little shorts and things like that that are not necessarily canon, but maybe aren't not canon. You know what I mean? Like, they haven't
Yeah.
officially said, no, this is not canon. They haven't made it canon yet, but it's like maybe, but you don't have that much. You know what I mean? So what we're
Mhm.
getting is so fresh, so new. Nobody really has. I mean, Mandalorian was the ability, you just got to start it. Right? You got to go where you wanted. Whereas there's so much that they announce a superhero and everybody and their brother has an idea of what that's supposed to look like already. And so
Mhm.
that can be hard, like Black Adam. Dwayne The Rock Johnson did the movie, and I know that's not
Mhm.
Marvel, but the
Right.
second that it's announced, everybody has an idea of what they're expecting.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
And Star Wars has not been that much, like Andor. It's like we didn't, there was really no mainstream story. They're getting to more or less fill a gap the way they want. And I think that allows a lot of creative freedom. And as long as you get the right people, you're going to create a great show.
For sure. 100%. Well, I want to do this. I want to pivot into one of the key questions that I always ask on this show. The way this show started out, we say Podcast of the Wills is the podcast that treats Star Wars like a sacred text. Some people have the Bible, some people have the Quran, some people have Star Wars. And so if we look at Star Wars as if it was our spiritual text, the thing that guides us, can you, Cody, put your finger on a time, an experience, a something in your life where Star Wars meant something more to you than just being a movie or a TV show or whatever? Have you had a Star Wars spiritual experience?
Yeah. For me, so the most important thing in my life by far is my family.
Sure.
And it was the longest build up till my boys, who are now 7, we're finally interested in Star Wars. Like,
nice.
I've just been waiting and praying, if you will, like, just get them where they'll appreciate it, right? Because I don't want to force it down their throat.
Sure.
That's not what I mean. But I also do want to share that with them if I can.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, a huge moment was, I was like, well, I was 7, and I felt like at 7 it was there for me. So I turn on this show, and it's A New Hope.
Okay.
My kids immediately are like, oh, you're making us watch an old show, right? Because you can tell, right? You can tell it's not new. My kids are smart enough. My boys are like, oh, you're making us watch an old show. And my heart just sank. I felt like, man, I know that it's not necessarily nice to say, but I was almost disappointed in them. Like, man, I this is so great. And I
want you to see what I see.
Yeah. And by the end, they are just leaning on the table, not even sitting down anymore. And it ends and they're like, what's next? And I'm like, oh, for me, that was just like this moment of like, I couldn't even explain it. I was just so happy. And I was like, don't worry. I'm not like my dad. I'll stay up till 1 a.m. finishing this with you right now. I don't care what you got tomorrow.
Go.
And
Everyone.
we just sat down and we just poured into Star Wars, me and my boys. And for me, there was like a moment there, like that was, it'll be a moment that I'll always remember and cherish with my sons, like getting that moment with my kids. And it was the same as what I remember. And to me, I remember it as like this life-changing experience. And I'm like, I hope that when my kids are 28, they are talking to somebody about, this one night when I was 7, my dad sat me down, played this old movie that I thought was going to be dumb. And
Right.
by the, it was this moment of clarity for them, and they get to love it. And they got, they've got lightsabers, and I didn't force it on them. I just exposed them, and they ran with it. They love it. They're in the middle of watching Clone Wars right now,
Okay.
and consuming. They love Lego Star Wars right now. Lego Star Wars is their favorite game, behind Fortnite, obviously. But they love Lego Star Wars. They play that all the time. We play it together. So for me, yeah, I mean, there's nothing that brings my family as close right now. I mean, I know it sounds horrible, but even my extended family. Sometimes me and my brothers, we don't always have the exact same, I guess, things we're interested in, right?
Sure.
We've veered from each other in some ways, but then at the same time, if we all show up, and somebody breaks out a Star Wars lightsaber, or they a new TV show drops, there's always an immediate thing I can communicate with my family on. And I know but in today's society, it's like, man, when everybody can have something else, sometimes it's hard to have those relationships and carry them on.
Agreed. Completely.
For Star Wars to be able to be something where me and my brothers, that no matter what's going on in our lives, can immediately just, we're right there.
Yep.
And we could talk for hours every time. I don't know how.
I love that.
But for me, that's awesome. So family,
for sure,
it's part of my family.
That's amazing. I love that so much. And that's such a great answer. And I relate to that on a lot of levels. I told you before we came on the air, I've got 4 daughters, and, I don't have sons, and I'm fine with that. I'm a great girl dad. Like, I actually knew before I ever had any kids, like, I'm going to have all girls. I just knew in my soul, that's who I am. That's what I do. Glad for it. But having those moments of going, are my girls going to like Star Wars? Are my girls going to like whatever? And I've got twins, and one of them, she's my Star Wars kid. Like, she'll watch shows with me. She'll do whatever. My other twin, she's the Marvel kid. She's a Loki person. She's, and now they're both 14 and they're into Green Day and Guns N' Roses. So I feel like I'm still doing okay as a dad.
Still doing okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a great little choice there. Wouldn't have been my first.
But being able to cultivate, and even going back to what we talked about earlier about reactions and seeing things, when Solo came out and I went and saw it the first time, I was like, okay, this is fun. I like it. It's happy. It's a fun movie. But then I went and took them to see it the second time, and watching my kids watch that movie and how consumed they were, I loved it 3 times more than I did the first time. Because again, everybody has a different window or door into Star Wars, and your kids may have gotten into it with Clone Wars or Rebels or the prequels, or finding that and seeing everybody come to it in a different way doesn't mean you're not welcome here. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad this thing got you here. I'm glad, we all ended up in the same place. And as parents with something we love, you want your kids to love the things you love. I live in Alabama, so it's Alabama and Auburn football. And it my wife went to Alabama. I grew up an Auburn fan. And so we have that traditional house divided. But then we started having kids, and it was like, well, what are we going to do? I'm like, well, I'm not forcing it. And we have 4 kids, and naturally 2 of them like Auburn and 2 of them like Alabama. And so, it's kind of this, steady piece that we've developed, but it creates that thing. And it's also the environment. And this, for anybody who doesn't live in the South who listens to this podcast, you just have to kind of understand what college football means in this part of the country. But like with my kids, absolutely. And with my kids, they don't super care about the football part, but game day means we're hanging out together. We're cooking fun food. We're spending the afternoon on the back porch watching games on TV. It's an event. It's something that brings us together to spend time together. So like my girls are even like, is it game day yet? And I'm like, you're excited about that? Like, yeah, like I want to be with you. And it's a chance for us to all, like Star Wars does that too. It brings us together. Like you said, with your siblings, it creates a communal thing that we can share and connect on which is deeply special or deeply spiritual in its own right.
Yep, absolutely. I just realized we matched. We coordinated. I didn't even realize.
That's right.
Look at
that. Very, very well done. Well, I'm sitting in the corner of my garage, and it's actually cool in Alabama, so I had to dress for the weather. You're just dressed because you're cool and you look like Han Solo. So,
oh man, I didn't even think about Han Solo.
That's right. You got the best Han Solo vibe going. So I want to do something else that I don't always do on this show, but I'm borrowing it from my buddy Pete, who is my network partner. On his show Around the Galaxy, he regularly does what we call the 10-question quiz. And it kind of falls in that vein of Inside the Actor Studio, where they'd bring actors on and they'd ask them these 10, kind of deep questions, whatever. Well, this is the Star Wars version of that. So I'm going to throw these 10 questions at you. And even to borrow a phrase from Pete, as Pete likes to say, I'm not going to judge you, but the internet might. So we're just going to answer, go with it however you want to.
Right.
This is something fun to do. So first question. What is your favorite Star Wars movie, TV show, or book? You can answer one of those, all three of those. It's totally up to you.
I'm going to be very much so mainstream with this answer. Empire Strikes Back is
absolutely.
To me, it's the best one. But I think that you can make an argument for some others, but I judge you if it's very many others. I love that one. That one is amazing.
Yeah. As soon as you started talking at the beginning of this interview, I knew that was going to be your answer. I was like, I know where this is going, but that's good. And I'm with you. I agree. If you could be any character from Star Wars, who would it be and why?
Oh, for sure, Han.
Okay.
I know that everybody might want to be a Jedi, and that is very tempting, but I think there's something amazing about Han accomplishing everything and being right there side by side with these people who have incredible powers and incredible abilities, and he's hanging with them and taking them on. And to me, I love that. I have always thought that was a cool part about Star Wars. So yeah, I love Han Solo for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And I agree with you. That was also my answer when I was on Pete's show. I also said Han Solo, and I even said Han Solo has the Indiana Jones thing, which I also love, which is Han Solo was somebody I could be, because things didn't always work out for him, but in the end it did. Like, he had a plan, he may have failed, but in the other side of it, and that's, I'm making this up as I go along, we can relate to that. Very relatable character. So here's one which is Star Wars, but is not Star Wars. What is your favorite non-Star Wars movie?
Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers extended cut.
Okay.
So I think that is such a phenomenal movie. Non-Star Wars. I'm going to be straight with you. It might be my favorite overall. That, and I will say close second, and this is going to be controversial, I loved Dune. Oh my gosh, I loved Dune. I loved Dune a lot. So that movie's up there.
If you could own one ship from the Star Wars galaxy, what would it be? I know it.
Come on now. The Millennium Falcon. I'm sorry. It's too cool not to. It's been through so much. I think all other ships I think you could say other ones, but for me, the nostalgia of it, and they played it through the whole, there isn't a movie without it, it's that iconic. So it's the fastest hunk of junk in the galaxy. How is that not your answer? And it got to a point when Pete would do this quiz that sometimes he would have to ask the question and take that one off the table, because that's the answer that everybody gives. So let's do that. If we took the Falcon off the table, what would your answer be? So I always thought that it was a cool and unique way of doing space travel with Obi-Wan's ship in Return of the Jedi. I'm sorry, Revenge of the Sith, that has the fast traveling
the hyperspace ring.
Hyperspace ring. I always thought that was so cool, and he was able to do some ridiculous battling in it. Facing off against Boba Fett's ship. Jango Fett at that time. But
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I think that would be my second.
Okay. That's a great answer. Describe Star Wars in 3 words or less.
So am I describing it as I see it, or if I was going to try and describe it to somebody who didn't know?
Just describing it as you see it.
Oh, this is a hard one. I would say ahead of its time at every level.
I love that.
And I know it's just simple, but like that movie, I showed my 7-year-olds in 2023, and that movie is in 1977 still holds up. I couldn't name another movie that's made in the 70s that I've watched on a regular basis, other than maybe some John Wayne's, because I used to do that. That's all we had back then. But I think really genuinely wraps it up for me is it's ahead of its time. It always leads. Everybody else seems like they're just trying to make something as good as Star Wars.
Okay, I love it. Who is your favorite Star Wars droid?
You know what? And part of this is a little bit, I wish they would have left him the way he was a little bit more in some of the original concepts of R2-D2, where he could actually speak English, and he was almost like a bully to C-3PO, and was more, not as much heroic. I think there's just so much around R2. I know that's such an original answer.
No, I have an entire shelf behind me of R2-D2. Like, that's my guy.
It's such a cool character. How they've kept him so he, her, whatever it kept it in such an incredible part of the show. To me, there's no droid that you can really compare to it, because if you look at it, I mean, it's the OP, that is the guy, he's been through it all, and I also like, I'm going to bring this up too, talking about droids. I love the internet. My favorite thing I've seen in a long time, and I don't know why I didn't put this together, but in A New Hope, when the droids are seen escaping, they know that 2 droids left or whatever, and there's a meme, it's like a stormtrooper comes up to Darth Vader, and he's like, man, they got away, we're looking for 2 droids, and they explain to him what they look like, and the thing is like, oh, no shit, bro, that's my boys. See, it's like in that moment, like, I never thought of like, what is Vader thinking when he's like, those are my droids? Like, they're literally
exactly.
The demise of Vader is his droids. I don't know. I just think that's a funny moment that I never really realized until I saw a meme. That's why I love the internet, man.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. What is your favorite Star Wars sound effect?
I think I would go with like 2. And I don't know if this is a sound effect, but I love the music in the cantina from A New Hope. I think that is, like, I know that's kind of cheesy, and also the Wookiee roar. I mean, I love people. We do it all the time, where it's like, who can make the best one? We joke about it all the time, and try to do it. And I love that. I think it was interesting that they created that whole character with a guy in a suit, and So.
That's amazing. I love that. Let's see. What is your go-to Star Wars quote? What is the Star Wars quote you use most often?
I think the one everybody uses most often. These are not the droids you're looking for. I do that all the time with my kids, my wife. Anytime I think it's probably, I say it the most because if my kids come up to me, and it's a bad habit. Like, it's like uncontrollable for me now, that if I'm eating something that I don't want them to eat, and they come up to me, I'm going to say, these are not the droids you're looking for. And they know, like, leave me alone. Like, you're not getting
you can go about your business. Move along.
Yeah. I mean, I love it. So
that's awesome. That's a good one. I like that. And anytime we can apply Star Wars to parenting our children, it's just a win.
I agree.
What is your favorite Star Wars moment?
This one, I don't know how many people will agree with me on or not, but I dang near cried in the new Obi-Wan show when Hayden Christensen says, "You didn't kill Anakin. I did."
Yeah.
I thought that was one of the greatest moments I've seen. And which is incredible. I mean, the emotion that they both portrayed there, you get to see Hayden Christensen's face for the first time, really, as Vader, and in his voice, you can hear it coming through. Oh man, gives me chills just thinking about it. I love that moment.
I love that, and I agree. That's one that has moved up my list just because of how powerful that, the emotions of it were. We know, the struggles that Obi-Wan had, feeling like he lost Anakin, and just that, the human aspect of that whole character and what he goes through. Incredibly powerful.
It also ties in like the something that I kind of like. People are saying it's a plot hole, where Obi-Wan tells Luke that Vader killed his father.
Right.
And for me, it's huge. Like I know that, but Obi-Wan in that moment, I think he has to believe that.
Yep.
Right. I think that's his redemption. There it's how he moves on. Is he lets that guilt go? He lets that go because he says, "No, Vader did kill him." That is what happened. Yep. And so it because it's like, why would he lie? Why you could have said anything. Why say Vader killed him? That to me, I was like, holy cow.
Yeah, he literally did.
Simple line, he literally did.
Yep.
I love it.
It's so good. Very, very well done. Well, I have to ask this one. I wrote this actually as a new question to add to the 10 questions because it felt appropriate for you as a TikTok sensation, as a social media up-and-comer on the rise. The 10th question I'm going to ask you is, which characters in Star Wars would have each of the following accounts? Which character would have a Twitter account? Which character would have a TikTok? Which character would have Facebook? And which character would have Instagram?
Oh, I love that. Okay. All right. Let me think.
And you
here.
can take them in any order you want.
Okay, I think Princess Leia has a Twitter account. Okay. She's political. She's out there. She's making a difference. She's not. I think she cares way less about like a comedy or a meme or posting some video. She's not vain. She's making a difference in the galaxy. I think Twitter.
I love that.
I think would fit most for her.
Okay.
Instagram. I think Hayden Christensen's early Anakin.
Okay.
Because he's trying to follow Padme. I feel like he would have like an Instagram crush on Padme. So I feel like Padme would have an Instagram, but maybe not.
Sure.
Straight up. But I know that's kind of a goofy way of saying it, but I always felt like he was like a relatable young teenager. Like he met the girl that he thinks is beautiful and he falls crazy in love with her. So
I love that.
It's hard
Good
to think
answer.
of any of them being on Instagram. But so then you said what YouTube was, or which one was it?
Facebook and TikTok.
Facebook and TikTok. Obi-Wan Kenobi's definitely a Facebooker. Like I feel like he has a Facebook for sure. For obvious reasons, I think. He's like the dad. Like,
he's the dad that's like commenting to people in his own status on Facebook, not actually in the comments.
100%. TikTok. Now, this is an interesting one because my view on TikTok is very much a comedic take. We definitely make comedy on TikTok, me and my wife. Yeah. But I know a lot of people make a lot of other content. I definitely feel like Poe Dameron would have a TikTok. I think Poe Dameron has a TikTok. I think he's out there making these hilarious puns. He's talking crap to the Empire. Like, I don't know. I feel like he has a TikTok. He's definitely got the sense of humor for it.
That's amazing. That's an excellent answer. I love that so much. What an excellent top 10 list. What a great way to navigate through this and give us some fun answers. Cody, thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight. Thank you for talking about Star Wars, sharing your story. Before we get out of here, I do want you to have an opportunity to tell the listeners what you've got going on. I know y'all have got a bunch of stuff. You've got merchandise. You've got a beard line coming out. You and your wife on TikTok. Tell us where everybody can find you, the best ways to connect up.
So the best thing to do is find us on TikTok. That's where we do 90% of what we do in social media right now. We are expanding, but TikTok is where we make the best content, I believe. So I am Cody.Marler on TikTok. My wife is Leslie Marler. Fairly simple to remember. And so right now we're in the middle of solidifying what we're trying to build, which is a relatable comedic brand. We have our merch and my beard line and all of our merch going to be dropping on December 1st. So actually, honestly, so to really kind of let you guys understand like what we really are doing, like we don't want this to be some like hyper serious thing. So if you go to our website right now, it's already live. It's codyandles.com. And at first glance, you'll see, and it looks like, that's what you would see any website. The longer you're there, the more you'll realize I made that anything but a regular website. The store is not active yet. That comes December 1st. But like if you look at my bio, my wife's bio, the FAQs, it's all, there's so much satire built in, so much comedy. That's what we want everything to feel like. We don't want you guys to feel like, oh, this is just some serious, like we're just regular people. We're just here to have fun and we're happy to be doing it with other people. So, you know, I love the website. I put a lot of work into it. I tried to make it something fun so that if you did have to go there, it wasn't ridiculous. There's hidden links that you can find. And like I said, the longer you're on that page, I think the more you'll start to realize like some of the jokes that are in there, some of the funny stuff. But that's, you know, I really liked that. But we're trying to grow out of TikTok because, you know, it would be amazing to create content for a living, you know, whether that's, you know, comedy, which I am looking at possibly doing my first stand-up act in Little Rock, Arkansas. I haven't, I'm still hesitant, but I'm thinking about it. I'm really thinking about it. So we're kind of going into the comedy realm, but also we just want to kind of grow our reach. I mean, like you said, you reached out to us on live. Like we want to communicate with people. I play on Twitch twice a week, and all I do is play with my followers. Like we play, you know, right now we've been playing Modern Warfare, but we'll play some Apex, just video games. And I love the fact that what we've been able to build created a community around us that I can, like, I would have never even thought that you would want me on your podcast or anything like that. So it's the ability for me to like develop these relationships in our real life from people that we would have never, without a shadow of a doubt in my mind, ever had communication or contact with. You know, I've got people who I'm gaming with now that are like my OG guys that are there and girls, and like he was sending me pictures. This guy, I don't even know his real name, but Diddy is sending me pictures of his daughter, and you know, I'm like, that's amazing. So proud of you. You know, it's awesome. A buddy of Jake, one of the people that I met gaming as well, sent my kids these V-Bucks and stuff, and you know, it's being able to, I mean, in good taste, connect my family and other people to these great individuals we've been able to meet and get to have fun. And this has been a great hour for me. Like I've loved it. So, you know, that's what we're about, is just, you know, getting to know people and having those experiences.
Well, and I'll say this, and like I said, I've just found you guys on TikTok a couple of weeks ago because, you know, again, I'm too old. I don't fully understand how TikTok works, but there I am falling down the rabbit hole, you know, scrolling, and I've got a TikTok for this podcast and I'm terrible about using it and trying to figure out ways to, you know, just, again, same thing, want to expand, want to reach out. But I will say that watching the stuff that you guys do, both you and Leslie both, like, it really is genuine. Like watching the interactions that you have, the way y'all play off of each other. It's clear you love each other. It's clear that, you know, you guys are in this to have a good time and to have fun and to just exist and be and not take yourselves too seriously. And I think that's something that speaks to people. So I love what you guys are doing. And I couldn't be more thankful that you were willing to join me tonight. It was such a fun conversation, and we'll definitely do something again and, talk more Star Wars.
A little advice before you go. What you asked at the end, those 10 questions.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can fit it all in one video. I don't know how long I rambled on. Even if you cut some of the empty parts out, that's a perfect TikTok, just so you know. Something like that, because you're getting that interaction with your audience.
Sure.
They want to answer it. It's genuine and real, so any questions like that where you have like a list, something quick, simple that somebody doesn't have to watch a lot of the podcast to understand the conversation going on. It's quick and simple. So like I said, do with that what you will. You don't have to. If you want to reach out, I can help you too a little bit on the app. I have got pretty good handle on it.
That's awesome. Well, to everybody who hung out and watched tonight, I know Jeff was with us, Matt was with us. Thank you guys for being Patreon supporters. Thank you for being, just with us kind of from the beginning. To everybody else that will get to hear this later on, may the Force be with you always.